Narsimhan. Viewers, it was the 11th of April when protests over the Waqf reform turned violent in West Bengal's Murshidabad district. Scenes of violence and arson with shops, houses and vehicles being set ablaze sent tremors among several Hindu families who were forced to flee to Malda. The rioters pelted stones, broke the doors and dragged the residents out. The victims of the violence have lost faith in the state government and the state police. They are actually demanding a permanent BSF camp in their vicinity. The victims say that the cops were inactive when the violence was happening. Your channel has been reporting from the ground, speaking to the victims of the violence who are narrating their horrors. This is the darkest hour before dawn and a dance of death. This is what West Bengal Governor C.V. Ananda Bose had said ahead of his trip to Malda to try and meet the victims of the Murshidabad violence. He is right now in Malda to meet the victims of the violence and will personally assess the situation on ground. Now, on Thursday on the right stand, your channel was the first to access a copy of the state government report before the High Court, which said that the police had to rescue its officers from the mob. And this is the violence on the 8th and 9th of April. They said that mob at that time was carrying lethal weapons. The 34-page report details out the scale of violence that ripped through Jangipur in Murshidabad district last week, starting on the 8th and then spilling over into the 11th. The report also highlighted that an unruly mob of 4,000 to 5,000 people had attacked the police and even snatched away the service revolver of a senior officer. In certain areas, like Shamsherganj, they said that the crowd mobilized was greater than 8 to 10,000 people. Now on Wednesday, a Bangladeshi national living in Bharat illegally was arrested by the Enforcement Directorate in West Bengal. The accused, identified as Ejad Malik alias Ahmad Hussain Azad, was allegedly involved in money laundering and prepared fake Indian identity documents for Bangladeshi infiltrators or illegals in exchange for money. Here on the right stand, we've brought you exclusive inputs on how Murshidabad violence mirrored the deadly pattern of atrocities against Hindus in Bangladesh. How Bengal's porous borders with Bangladesh have allowed the entry of radicals who have exploited the unrest in Bengal to subvert Bharat. With the Home Ministry sources raising concerns about the involvement of possible Bangladeshi intruders and elements, radicals, in the anti-Waqf protests in the state of Bengal. Now, we brought you exclusive inputs on how radicals from across the border are trying to put Bharat's eastern frontier at risk by attempting to turn Bengal into a hub for transnational attacks. Thursday's comments by Shafiqul Alam, the press secretary to the chief advisor Muhammad Yunus, expressing condemnation over the attacks on Muslims and urging the Indian government and West Bengal authorities to take necessary steps to ensure the safety and protection of minority Muslim population, possibly hints at a clear Bangladesh-like pattern in these anti-Waqf riots. It's the Hindus who've been targeted, it's the Hindus who have fled, but look at the narrative that's being pushed over from Bangladesh. Clearly, the Indian government has reacted very strongly. MEA spokesperson Randir Jaiswal said, and I quote, "We reject the remarks made by Bangladesh side with regard to incidents in West Bengal. This is a barely disguised and disingenuous attempt to draw a parallel with India's concerns over the ongoing persecution of minorities in Bangladesh, where the criminal perpetrators of such acts continue to roam free." Let's go across to Ambassador Kamal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary of India, with us, and we also have Dr. Anand Ranganathan and then Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhary, a Bangladeshi journalist. My namaste to everybody. Thank you very, very much. Kamal Sibalji, first up, your understanding of what's being perpetrated. Is there a similarity in the modus operandi? Do you believe the hand of Bangladeshi illegals, infiltrators here? There are inputs which suggest that both online and offline, there are radical elements that are deliberately stoking the fire. Your thoughts, sir?
Couple of things.
Ji.
One is that we have had a long-standing problem of illegal migration from Bangladesh, and there has always been a political plan behind it to change the demography of our border states. And we've also had in the past Bangladeshi governments giving shelter to anti-Indian insurgents, which clearly mean that there is a record of Bangladesh trying to foment instability across the border in India. Now, during the Hasina period, things were stable, became more stable, and she was cooperative, and some of these things came under control, though not the fact of illegal migration, which has continued. Now, it's clear that in the larger scheme of things, if the Muslim population of West Bengal or the demography of West Bengal can be changed, then the political consequences of that, not only in West Bengal, but on India, for India as a whole, become very, very significant. And it's a direct assault on our democratic process, apart from other things. Now, what has happened in recent weeks, months after the coup in Bangladesh in terms of targeting minorities is an old story. The minorities, Hindu minorities, have never been fully safe in Bangladesh. Even during Sheikh Hasina's rule, there were incidents, though of course, because at the apex level there was such good understanding between the two countries, it was in our shared interest not to highlight these as much as might have been required. But now with Sheikh Hasina out, and the Islamists and the Jamaat-e-Islami actually wielding power, and the close advisors of Yunus declaredly Islamist in orientation, so that kind of, the situation that existed earlier has now come out much more in the open and aggressively and blatantly. That is one part of it. The other is that I'd like to be a little cautious in not trying to absolve elements in Bangladesh, in West Bengal itself, by shifting the blame to radicals in Bangladesh. That will give an easy way out to the political power in the political party in Bangladesh, in West Bengal. And this is the narrative they will just swallow. And then put a blame on the Indian government, saying that, look, why don't you control immigration? We've been telling you that we must stop this immigration, but it's a failure on your part. And absolve the voter base of the political party in power from the kind of exactions that we've been seeing on the ground. Now, I can quite admit that there is inspiration, there is encouragement, there is incentivization from across the border, but I would be very careful in not in shifting the blame away from the population, Muslim population of West Bengal, or elements, radical elements in West Bengal. That is the third point.
Well, clearly,
the fourth point is that I'm not totally satisfied with the statement made by our spokesperson, which was necessary, which was needed. It was rightly phrased, but the other side knows that we will react and we'll make a statement, and that's not going to change things. Therefore, something else needs to be done. How it is done, whether it is done publicly or not done publicly, some kind of a concrete warning signal has to go to the other side that this can't carry on. They shouldn't have this sense of impunity that they can do and say everything. And in a situation where the public opinion is so raw in India because of what's happening in West Bengal, they're playing politics by saying protect your Muslim minority in Bangladesh. No. This cannot be accepted. And finally, this whole links with Pakistan that Yunus is trying to establish. The Pakistani foreign secretary was there recently, and now their foreign minister is going to visit Bangladesh, and Yunus is openly talking about restoring ties with Pakistan. So now we have a prospect of a more serious situation, and therefore we have to try and nip this in the bud if we can. It won't be easy. It won't be easy. Some hard decisions would need to be taken. Right. These are easy decisions, but something beyond mere statements.
It's just interesting, Kanwal Sibal, that Bangladesh has actually asked Pakistan to apologize for the horrors of 1971 and the massacres, and they've also said, you return the $4.52 billion that you owe us, you please give that money back to us. So that has also been said at this bilateral. Notwithstanding the fact that victims on ground have very clearly here on the News 18 network also not absolved the locals. They have said that these were people from our vicinity who covered their faces and came. But there are inputs that there are those elements who are fanning the flames. Because of this entire illegal immigration that has happened, migration has happened in Murshidabad, a lot of people trace their roots and origins to Bangladesh. And they are following what's happening in Bangladesh very clearly, and there are some linkages which are being established. Before I go across to Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhary and also Dr. Ranganathan, we got more inputs coming through on this very aspect. Manoj Kumar Gupta, Group Editor, Investigations and Security Affairs, he's now getting us this input. That Bangladeshi media and social media platforms have been projecting the Waqf Amendment Bill as a symbol of Bharat's Hindu nationalist agenda, adding that it is a sign of neighbouring countries' hand in the West Bengal riots. Sources have added that they have been alleging that the bill undermines Muslim autonomy and violates constitutional protections for minority institutions. Intel sources added that Bangladeshi media is comparing the bill to Citizenship Amendment Act CAA and the BJP's Hindutva-driven policies, framing it as a part of a broader pattern of marginalizing Muslims. Bangladeshi narratives are stressing on internal opposition to the bill, particularly from West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, to protect India as politically fractured. The media has been highlighting her remarks, such as questioning why Muslims are targeted and accusing the BJP of bypassing state consultations to showcase discord between West Bengal and the central government. Outlets like Prothomalo have called the bill an attack on India's federal structure. Bangladeshi media strategically connected the Waqf bill to communal violence in our country and cross-border tensions. Reports allege that protests against the bill in West Bengal's Murshidabad district were fueled by Hindu nationalist aggression, with Bangladeshi outlets blaming Indian authorities for failing to protect Muslims. So it's a total lopsided this one. Social media campaigns, Bengal burning, have been amplifying claims of Hindu majority persecution of Muslims, pushing solidarity among Bengali-speaking Muslims in Bangladesh and Bharat. Bangladeshi social media users and groups have employed tactics similar to 2019 CAA protests to inflame tensions. Toolkit-based protests are being pushed. Encrypted apps like Telegram and WhatsApp are being used to coordinate protests. They are sharing doctored videos falsely claiming police firing on worshippers and circulating incendiary slogans like Islam khatre mein hai, Islam is in danger. Intel sources allege groups such as the Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh and Harkatul Jihad Islami Huji are exploiting the bill to stoke anti-Bharat sentiment, and some Bangladeshi activists are amplifying narratives through global media. Amplifying West Bengal's dissent undermines Bharat's unity, legitimizing Bangladesh's resistance to perceived Indian dominance in regional affairs, said sources, adding the interim government is using anti-Bharat rhetoric to divert attention from domestic crises such as economic instability and consolidate support among Islamist factions. Let's go across to Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhary. How would you respond to this? Now, these are aspects. So there are multiple layers to this whole story, but a lot of it is about fanning the flames, stoking passions. 14-year-old, 15-year-olds are walking around with weapons in their hand, touting and attacking people on the streets.
Thank you very much. Since August 5th, 2024, jihadist coup in Bangladesh and a Pakistani element, ISI element like Muhammad Yunus being planted as the so-called chief advisor of an illegal regime, we are witnessing the rise of radical Islamic jihadists in this country, chanting Taliban-type slogans. They are attempting to turn Bangladesh into a Taliban nation, caliphate nation. At the same time, as you and I and all of us know, that in 2014, a person named Salahuddin Salehin, the kingpin of Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh, he is in 24 Pargana in West Bengal, running a sleeper cell with maintaining coordination with the Hizbul Mujahideen. And in September last year, the leader of the kingpin of the Ansarullah Bangla team, which is actually known as Ansar al-Islam, a local franchisee of Al-Qaeda, Jasimuddin Rahmani, he publicly threatened what is his ambition of implementing Ghazwatul Hind. So this Yunus regime in Dhaka, this is actually a prototype of Pakistani ISI. Even not Pakistani, that illegal, these regimes in Pakistan, this is exactly a prototype of Pakistani ISI. And they are trying to, they have already turned Bangladesh into a free haven of the terrorists and jihadists, as you have mentioned that kids are seen on the streets waving jihadist flag, Al-Qaeda flag, Islamic State flags, and also waving weapons. So this incident in India, in Murshidabad, this is definitely connections with Bangladeshi jihadis. And you can see the way Yunus regime has reacted to it. It actually proves their involvement. Yunus himself is aware of who is behind this kind of the terrorist activities, because Yunus has been planted in Bangladesh to destabilize India and the region. And Bangladesh is actually, people say Bangladesh is becoming Afghanistan. People say Bangladesh is becoming Syria. No, Bangladesh is going to become worse than Syria, worse than Afghanistan. And ultimately, the American deep state, which has planted Yunus in power, this regime is going to become the biggest headache for the American government, the United States itself, and they were afraid of Osama bin Laden. Now Yunus is going to become much more monster than Osama bin Laden, than Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and this is going to happen from Bangladesh. And absolutely, there are hands of Bangladeshi jihadists and this Yunus regime behind what is happening in India.
Salahuddin sir, what is the role of the army? Because we had the army chief quite frustrated not so long ago. 3 weeks back, he came out very, very frustrated with the goings on. But are the army also quite fundamentalist? Are they hand in glove? Is the army also compromised somewhere in Bangladesh? What's the recourse? Because this is supposed to be an interim government. He's supposed to submit Bangladesh to elections. Is that going to happen or not?
The army chief is the person who installed Yunus into power. He supported Yunus. He is very much installed. He is very much behind installing Yunus. He is very much behind the August 5th coup, jihadist coup in Bangladesh. And now Yunus is taking preparations of killing its own Frankenstein. The army chief will be arrested in Bangladesh by this month or next month by Yunus regime and executed, because Yunus is already advancing the case of Bangladesh Rifles, the 2009, the Bangladesh Rifle mutiny case. He is reviving it. Every day we are receiving text messages on all mobile phones in Bangladesh. They are calling upon people to provide information. And this is the trap. Army Chief Awakar Zaman, if he will not act now against this jihadist regime, he will be arrested and he will be hanged. And Bangladesh is gradually going into the tight grips of the jihadis, as you mentioned, and the honorable former foreign secretary mentioned that Pakistani foreign secretary is in Dhaka. Now Pakistani foreign minister is coming to Dhaka, and what they want apology from Pakistan. Who Yunus is to ask for apology? Yunus is not an elected entity. It is us, the people of Bangladesh, who will decide how to deal with Pakistan. Pakistan has killed 30 lakh people, 3 million people. Pakistan has raped 4 to 5 lakh of my mothers and sisters. It is us who will decide. And we will not have any relations with Pakistan, because for Bengalis, Pakistan is our eternal enemy and the only enemy.
But that does not seem to be coming across the way it should come across. Dr. Ranganathan, thank you for your patience. We've got the NCW team which is on ground. CV Ananda Bose is on ground. There are multiple layers to this. Kawal Sibal Saab said, don't forget the locals' involvement. The locals in cahoots with these Bangladeshi infiltrators, these radical elements. That border has been left so porous. This is a dangerous situation that we are sitting on. It's a tinderbox. And we cannot afford another partition-like situation.
My fellow, I agree with the previous two panelists and what they've said, especially Kamalji, except a slight disagreement with Kamalji, who inspires me, because he says that the advisors of Yunus are Islamists. I'm afraid it's not just the advisors of Yunus who are Islamists. Yunus himself is an Islamist. I mean, you can't say that Eichmann and Rudolf Hess are Nazis, but Hitler isn't. Basically, I call the reason why Yunus and his band of Islamists as children of Goebbels. Because, Anand, it was Goebbels who said, the first rule of propaganda is accuse the other person of what you're guilty of. I mean, we have just seen in Murshidabad right before our eyes, Hindus being lynched, their property looted, destroyed, them driven into exile by Muslim mobs. And here is Bangladesh saying Muslims are being attacked. Which planet are they living on? And India has given a fitting rebuttal to their propaganda, but I'm afraid, as Mr. Sibbal says, it's not enough. It's water off a duck's back for them. Anand, the fact of the matter is, they are not concerned about the Hindu minorities there. We have to be concerned. We have to save the Hindus of Bangladesh. It is our moral duty, our dharma, because the fate of the Hindus in Bangladesh is sealed from 29.5% in 1931 to 9.5% in 2011 to what many census officials believe is less than 7% now. The Hindu population of Bangladesh, erstwhile Pakistan, has dwindled decade upon decade. And to add to the misery, 11.3 million Hindus were forced to flee between 64 and 2013. 2.4 million perished in the 70-71 genocide. As many as 1.2 million Hindu families have been dispossessed of 2 million acres of land. And here they are talking about Waqf possessing land. 12.6 million is the current Hindu population. The spate of terrible violence, rape, murder, looting, arson, temple destruction, Anand, is a pointer to an ominous future for the Hindus there. The situation is calamitous. We are seeing what is happening in the aftermath of the August coup in district after district. Lal Molihar, Chandapur, Hadbanda, Panchagar, Patwa Khali. Hindu houses are being torched. Shops looted, temples desecrated, ISKCON temple is vandalized, the deity is burnt. More than 50 Hindu teachers and vice chancellors have been forced to resign. Lynchings have happened inside police stations. Hindu priests are being arrested and charged with sedition. We have to act, not implore Bangladesh to act. We have the CAA. It must no longer remain an amnesty, Anand. We must arm it. Let me give you a disturbing statistic, just 30 seconds. Of the hundreds of thousands of Bangladeshi Hindu refugees who escaped the 70-71 genocide and settled in India, only 14 have been given citizenship through the CAA. Only 14, Anand. That is less than the number of Bangladeshi cricketers that we welcomed to India recently. Will we wait till we have to airlift the last Hindu from Bangladesh like we did from Afghanistan? What we don't realize is that Bangladesh and Pakistan will soon go the way of Afghanistan. It is their wish, their destiny, their way, exactly what is prescribed for them. You cannot alter it. And so you cannot alter the past or the future. It is time for India to have a law of return like Israel, because the only safe place left for Hindus is Hindustan. But what has our government done except continuing to express outrage like it did just now? Has it constructed detention or relief centers this side of Indo-Bangladesh border to allow tens of thousands of persecuted Hindus fleeing genocide in Bangladesh and standing in chest-high waters of Teesta? Not one, zero. So can I please say this? Please, let us stop blaming the Islamists. The onus is not on them to save Hindus. The onus is on us.
But if the point is you are talking about Bangladesh Hindus, Dr. Ranganathan, here the government of the day, state or center, has not been able to spare or save the Hindus who are in Hindustan right now. In Malda, Murshidabad and all these regions, it is the local Hindus who have had to flee. And you have had elected representatives who are standing there and saying, oh, at least they have fled only within the state from one district to the other.
Within.
So, Kanwal Sibbalji, how do we address this? How are we going to stand up there as a champion for anybody who believes in the Hindu way of life if we cannot protect the Hindu way of life? And already those who are present in Hindustan practicing the Hindu way of life.
You are absolutely right. There is a great deal of frustration on this account, but this is a problem that we've been living with right from the time of partition of India. It is nothing new. The whole we've not been able to address the question of communities in India living together peacefully because the legacy of the partition has left such forces behind, and these have been amplified over time, that we do not find a way, democratic way, to resolve this issue. This is the price that democracy has to pay. This is the unfortunate part. That is one part of it. The other is that if there is a problem in West Bengal and the government in power there does not seem to be receptive to the broader national concerns about what is happening there and the repercussions of that on communal harmony in India, then what does one do? The answer lies within our own constitutional system. And I don't think that any government or even the present government is prepared to take very, very hard decisions. Look, when I was Foreign Secretary, we gave documentation to the Bangladeshi side, saying that there are about 20, according to us, about 20 million illegal Bangladeshi immigrants in this country. And there was total denial on the other side. Now, almost 2 decades have gone. And
it's gone to 40 million, sir. The unofficial estimates are, sir, 40 million. 40 million illegals in our country.
And we've not been able to address the problem. Therefore, your anguish and your question is absolutely appropriate. But the point is, do we have answers ourselves? And these are very, very difficult answers, and the situation is becoming worse and worse. There are some strong leaders in some provinces in India who've taken certain strong steps. But are others ready to do that? Can we have an evolution of the politics of these particular states where more security-minded, nationalist-minded parties come to power and then protect the integrity of the country, not in terms of only of borders, but also in terms of communal harmony and infiltration and everything else? So, Anand, you have posed an obvious question, but I don't think there's an obvious answer.
Yes, Dr. Ranganathan, final word, have to wind up.
I just wanted to add to Kanwalji, permit me to slightly be at variance again. I think the communal disturbances that we've seen is not so much a legacy of the partition as it is the last 75 years, the kind of mollycoddling and appeasement that we've done towards a particular community. So much so that we have armed them with such discriminatory acts, for example, like the Waqf Act, that the Hindus have become so antagonized to the discrimination that has happened, and that has not been corrected even by quote-unquote friendly governments to Hindus, that there is no way out. So, for example, like what Mr. Amit Shah said, the most disturbing statistics is from 1913 to 2013. The Waqf had 18 lakh acres under its control. But in the last 10 years, it's got 20 lakh acres under its control. This is the kind of rapid appeasement result that we've seen that has led to further acrimony and antagonization.
See, the point is that is about the denizens of Hindustan. These are Bharatiya people who have to sort it out with themselves. Right now what's happening is those who are not Bharatiya but who have seeded themselves here, who are parasites, are somewhere running riot on the streets on an act that should not even include them, because they should not be here in the first place. So it's a larger problem that we have created for ourselves, and we have to be cognizant of it, because unless we weed out these illegals or create a situation that they go back to where they have come from, we will always have an internal security situation. We will always be bursting at the seams, and we will always be sitting on a tinderbox, because these are people who will never embrace this culture. They have come here for other reasons. That's a reality. I have to wind up on that note. Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here. Time for a very short break. When we come back, Kesari 2 is up on the screens. It celebrates the legacy of C. Shankaran Nair. We tell you all about it. Family members can talk about the legacy of that tall leader. Stay with us. The Akshay Kumar starrer Kesari Chapter 2 is all set to hit the theatres on the 18th of April. This also triggered a political firestorm. Another talking point that has now come to put the Congress in a spot or turn the spotlight on the politics of opportunity and political ambition of a dynasty, the Nehruvian dynasty. The movie Kesari Chapter 2 is based on the life and times of lawyer C. Shankaran Nair, who took on both the British and the Congress, especially after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. He was the youngest president of the Congress at the Amravati session back in 1897. Mind you, A.O. Hume was founded the Congress in 1890. Just 7 years later, he was the elected president of the Congress party. He was the first Malayali president of the Indian National Congress. He took on the British after the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. In 1915, he became a member of the Viceroy's Executive Council, but then he resigned from the council after Jallianwala Bagh massacre. BJP leader Rajiv Chandrasekhar shared a post claiming that the Congress party neglected former luminaries such as C. Shankaran Nair, Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar to serve the interests of the Congress dynasty. Chandrasekhar's post read, Chettur Shankaran Nair was a prominent Indian lawyer, statesman and former president of the Indian National Congress in 1897, but he's been erased out of the Congress's history. He's remembered even today for his legal battles, like his case against Michael O'Dwyer, who perpetrated the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. With polls due in Kerala in 2026, will Kesari 2 underline the growing perception about the power-hungry nature of Nehruvian brand politics that was practiced by members of his dynasty? Is the story of C. Shankaran Nair one of the many where political ambition robbed them of their rightful place in the annals of Bharat's history? Well, interesting here. Abbas Maldahiyar, author, historian with us, Raghu Palat, Shankaran Nair's great-grandson is with us, Pushpa Palat, wife of Raghu Palat is with us, and we also have Professor Kim Wagner, British historian and author, Jallianwala Bagh, Utpal Kumar, senior editor, First Post, and who's just released the book Eminent Historians, also with us. So was history distorted deliberately, somebody's legacy erased from the annals of Bharat's history? We'll come to all of that. But Raghu, first up, thank you very, very much for making the time. And Pushpaji, thank you very, very much. My first question to the two of you, and if I may ask you, Raghu, what is it that you learned about C. Shankaran Nair, your great-grandfather? And what is it that you would like the Bharat of today to know?
I grew up hearing stories about my great-grandfather, Sir Chettur Shankaran Nair, but I didn't know too much about him. It was much later, after we started writing the book and we began to do the research in regard to the book, that we realized the enormous contribution he had made for India. Right from 1897 in the Amravati speech that he gave as Congress president, he spoke about self-rule for Indians, and he worked tirelessly towards that. So, he was a man who believed that everything should happen through enactment of law, because he was a lawyer by profession, he was a high court judge, and he believed that there was a manner in which reforms should be implemented. That a person with high principles, he did not really need others to, to go along the same way that he felt. But if he felt strongly about something, he would stand alone if necessary and fight for it. That's the kind of person he was.
Interestingly, Palat, correct me if I am wrong, is it from the maternal line? C. Shankaran Nairji's wife had the surname Palat, if my research is correct. Raghuji, is that true?
No, not at all. Sir Chettur Shankaran Nair had one son and 5 daughters. The son was my grandfather. And the Palat surname was my grandfather took his house name, his Tarwad name, and made that his surname, and he was known as Ramundi Menon Palat. So and my father followed that. And I followed that. We are not of the Palat Tarwad.
Okay, so that's how the Palat surname finds itself continuing even now.
Yes.
So there's the correction there, and
Yes.
at least for everybody to understand how Raghu Palat and Pushpa Palat come. So Pushpaji, your thoughts? So the case that shook the empire. Now, the movie is supposed to be on that entire legal fight, which eventually he lost, but there were a lot of facts that came to the fore, and he had made a huge lot of, list of reforms that was suggested to the British Empire, and a lot of it the British Empire had actually taken into consideration. And all of this perhaps after the Jallianwala Bagh incident. Kim, I'll come to you after Pushpaji speaks. Yes, Pushpaji.
After the case. So, yes, he did, as you say, lost the case, but he won the war. As you know, you lose a battle, you win the war. What was his purpose in fighting the case? His purpose was to show that there was no such thing as British justice. British have always promoted that it's always fair play, and British justice is above all else. But the whole court case was a sham. You had the bigoted judge, you had a jury which was equally bigoted. You had the judge giving us the closing statements and almost, helping out the other side. So, being a legal man, he knew what was happening. Obviously, he was aware of it, and he knew the end result of this. But that was not the point. The entire world press was there, and we, honestly, during our research, had daily reports from all these. We had collected them, we had, acquired them. And we had daily reports of the case for 5.5 weeks. It was the longest case at that time. And it was all there. So they had been covered worldwide. It was not just in India, but the Singapore Straits, everywhere. Every newspaper in the world had covered it. So what had he done? It was not only the Jallianwala Bagh, but all the atrocities committed in Punjab were disclosed now, where they had tried to keep it within the borders. They had closed the borders. They had censored the press. There was no way information was getting out. So they were retaining their image. That image was smashed. And now the Punjab and the rest of India realized that they could not depend on Britain for justice. So they wanted freedom. Freedom and nothing else.
So he used the court case to reset the narrative and also ensure that the information was spilled over to the whole world, one that was perhaps bottled. Professor Kim Wagner, agree, disagree? You've done your own bit of research. You've authored Jallianwala Bagh yourself.
I think there's a slight misconception here in the sense that this is a libel case brought against Sankaran Naya, right? It's Michael O'Dwyer who takes issue with a single page in Naya's book, which is, of course, not focusing on British rule, but rather on Gandhi and anarchy, as already mentioned. This is also several years after the massacre itself, but also after the Hunter Committee and after the British government has discussed this. So there's a lot of important evidence that emerges during this trial, but it is lost. There's headlines that says that General Dyer is vindicated. The way it was reported in the press in the UK is not one of anything that might resemble an Indian nationalist victory, right? Michael O'Dwyer feels vindicated. And so I see it more as a kind of epilogue to the Jallianwala Bagh matter. It's an important case and it's often been overlooked, but I regard it slightly differently.
How do you regard this?
As a sort of a slight, I wouldn't call it a sideshow, but something that happens, years after. General Dyer at this point, he's depicted in the movie as being present in the trial. General Dyer was dying at this point. O'Dwyer has resigned. He's no longer Lieutenant Governor of Punjab, right? So this is several years after, and it does the case does dominate the newspapers for a few weeks. But I don't think it can be claimed that it really profoundly changes the narrative.
But does it not? Would you disagree that it brought the truth of Jallianwala Bagh front and center, and Michael O'Dwyer filing that defamation case perhaps unearthed certain aspects to what happened there? And would you agree, disagree with Pushpa Palat when she says that what was bottled up, what was blocked, now then the whole world got to know what had actually happened?
I don't recognize that depiction. A lot of evidence had already been brought out by the National Congress inquiry that had taken place in 1919 and 1920. A lot of further details came out. That is true. So it's an important part of the history of Jallianwala Bagh. But I don't see it as this big revelation.
Raghupalat?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Could I interject?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
When the Jallianwala Bagh massacre occurred, Sir Shankaran Nair was a member of the Viceroy's Executive Council. There was suppressed censorship in the Punjab and nothing leaked out. So when information slowly started trickling out and Sir Shankaran Nair heard about it, he felt he should resign from the Executive Council. At that time, Congress leaders such as Dr. Annie Besant and Motilal Nehru went up to Sir Shankaran Nair and begged him not to resign from the Viceroy's Executive Council because he was the only person, the only Indian fighting for the rights of Indians. He said at that time that he would reconsider if Father Andrews, who was an Englishman, a priest and a friend of Mahatma Gandhi, if he would go into the Punjab and find out exactly what had occurred. Father Andrews took a train and went to the Punjab, but he was not allowed to enter. And so he returned back to Simla and told Sir Nair, resign, I will not stand in your way. And Sir Shankaran Nair resigned. The fact that he resigned at the pinnacle of his career reverberated through the entire country. Martial law was lifted in 3 days, press censorship was lifted in 4 days, and this was discussed even in the House of Commons. And that is why Austen Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister at that time, asked and had the Hunter Commission instituted to find out exactly what had occurred in the Punjab. And the Congress report also happened, was investigated. When Winston Churchill heard about what had happened, he called it a monstrosity. And Major General Dyer was asked to resign and leave. He was considered unfit for military duty, and he had to return to India. And Sir Michael O'Dwyer was also, asked to give up his position, and he walked through the corridors of Westminster trying to be heard, and he was not given a chance because everyone realized the terrible things that they had done. It was just that after Sir Shankaran Nair returned to India, and when he was the Diwan of Indore, wrote Gandhi and Anarchy, and 3 copies of the book landed in England, that Sir Michael O'Dwyer thought this would be a manner in how he could redeem himself, and filed a case of defamation in a British court, knowing that he would get a better than fair hearing.
But let's take this conversation forward. Abbas Maldhayar and Utpal are with us. Let's just quickly understand. Abbas, your thoughts on this entire aspect of why C. Shankaran Nair is never mentioned in the Congress annals. Is it because of Gandhian legacy? Because of his criticism of Mahatma Gandhi? More than this defamation case around the Jallianwala Bagh massacre?
Very good evening to all the panelists, and it's such a wonderful pleasure to be around with the people who should be the best speaking for the subject. I am glad to be here, Anand. So tonight's question is very simple, that why does India remember General Dyer's bullet, but not the only Indian who dared to roll back with the words that would have shattered the Raj? His name is obviously the Sir Shankaran Nair, the forgotten firebrand Congress never would have wanted. A man with a spine made of Malabar teeth, the tongue sharp enough to nightmares, the voice and whatnot. We can just keep on talking about him. But when came the 1919 Jallianwala Bagh massacre happened, And then there were the whole bunch of people celebrating the thing even in England. We have the stories, we have the things on the record. And of course, they were it was condemned by a lot of people. But there were a lot of Indians also who were not having enough guts to speak up for what it needed to be for. And the man who stood was Mr. Shankar Nayak. Now, the biggest speaker which comes into the play is that who stood for the gender dyer. It was a man named Amar Singh Thapar. He was a magistrate in Punjab. And you see that how a few bunch of Britishers, who was trying to defend gender dyer, this man jumps in, the grandfather of famed intellectual class, I would say. We see on a prime time today, and a lot of intellectual discourses of history are framed by them. They are the one. They were given enough of honor by the Congress government. Congress rewarded this family very much. They were allowed to thrive. They were never called collaborators. Their descendants went on to become TV historians, textbook editors, and whatnot. And meanwhile, Sir Shankar Nayak, the only man who could say something for the Jallianwala Bagh, was cast aside.
There's no denying that Mr. Nayak, Shankar Nayak, was one of the most important Indian of his time. He, in fact, after Viceroy, he was the second most important person in the country, and at that time he had everything to lose. And yet, he took that small decision to quit his position in Viceroy's Executive Council. That was quite big. You see, he has so much to lose from there, and still he took the decision. And if I look at him from today, I feel that he was kind of Bazigar of colonial Bharat, where he knew that he's going to take on the administration. He will lose the battle, which he lost also in the defamation case. But he knew that by losing it, he'll kind of get so much of information across the country and also expose the colonial government, British government, and he did that. In fact, British Parliament of the time, they discussed the condition of Punjab. That was a huge deal. And for me, personally, like someone like Churchill, whose anti-Indiaism was known, even he felt that British Empire did extremely wrong in Jallianwala Bagh. I think that was his success. So it is really ironical that someone of his stature, and mind you, even Mahatma Gandhi acknowledged his role post Jallianwala Bagh massacre. He said that he did a commendable job in kind of awakening the masses of this country, and yet, when the history was written, he was completely sidelined. And today, if we remember him through a film, it tells a lot about the kind of history we are taught.
Raghupalat, if I may ask you, what do you believe? Why do you believe he wrote the book Gandhi and Anarchy? Why do you think he was critical of Mahatma Gandhi?
The reason about at those days, he had a different. His thoughts were that it should be through reform, through the passing of laws, whereas Mahatma Gandhi was, wanted to get freedom through the disobedience movement and by non-cooperation, etc. So they were an ahimsa. Now, Sir Shankar Nayak was a Nair, and he felt that if someone hit him, he would hit him back. Because it was a difference in viewpoint. They wanted the same result, which was that Indians rule themselves. One by law, the other through using a different method. That's all.
Yeah, dominion status was, that's what he argued for. Yes, Pushpaji.
But you must always remember. But you must always remember. You must always remember that even though they had different ways of achieving freedom, they used to converse with each other. They used to work with each other. And after the case, Mahatma Gandhi wrote in Young India, Sir Shankar Nayak put the British government and the British system on trial and found them wanting. He also said in Young India that Sir Shankar Nayak is a great freedom fighter. So they were friends in that way, but their methods were different, that's all.
Friends in that way, but methods were different, approach was different. I've run out of time, but Pushpaji, complete. And
With
Raghu, you
respect-
cannot speak over her because your mics will overlap. So you'll have to allow her to speak. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. But I do feel he has been overlooked. Yes, I do really feel that he has been overlooked. But and now the movie has brought him to the forefront, and we're delighted. It's worldwide release next Friday, and I'm really really happy. And amends, even now amends can be made. So okay,
Yeah.
some years have passed, but it's better late than never.
Well,
And
so-
I am delighted. And I am delighted that Shashi Tharoor, a senior congressman, has mentioned in Trivandrum today that it's time to make amends.
yes, it is. It is not
He is
just time
also
to
recognizing this.
Yeah, it is not just time to make amends, it is also time to get informed, get the right perspective about our history. So start with the movie, get to the book, The Case That Shook the Empire, and then read Professor Wagner's book and work on the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So you'll get a holistic perspective. And then eventually once you're done, and if you feel like reading more, read Eminent Historians and Babar by the other two panelists here who are with us. Thank you very, very much. Engaging conversation. Thank you so much.
Very warm welcome. You're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. The West Bengal government today submitted a report to the Calcutta High Court assuring that the law and order situation in violence-hit Murshidabad is under control. The government has informed the court that several affected families have taken shelter in relief camps. Efforts are being made to facilitate the return of the displaced individuals to their homes. Earlier in the day, Bengal Governor C.V. Ananda Bose met Hindus who fled Murshidabad after the violence, assuring help to those affected. Now, a team from the NHRC also visited a refugee camp in Malda to assess the situation and provide support to the displaced families. The NHRC will monitor the condition in the relief camps and make recommendations to ensure the safety and well-being of the affected individuals.